Everyone, thank you for joining us for this incredible BPM Speaker Series. This is an exciting one. We've been putting together for a while as part of this greater series, and we have two incredible guests. One that will be hosting the conversation, and one that will be joining us. But obviously, before we get going, Turtle Island. Uh, So this land is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe Cree, Dakota, and the Dene people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories and acknowledge the harms and mistakes committed here. And we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. Um, so obviously today we're here for the BPM Speaker Series, and this is presented through BPM, the Black Professional Music Program, and it is in partnership with Black History Month Manitoba, and made possible by the support of Factor. Obviously, could not do this without Factor. So, BPM program exists to support Black music professionals in Manitoba. It's supported by Advance, Canada's Black Music Business Collective, and you can find out more about BPM at www.manitobamusic.com/BPM. And of course, if you don't know, you will know now. There is a BPM playlist. It's on Spotify. This month is curated by an incredible artist by the name of YBK Shakur. So go check out his playlist. It's a mix of different artists, all from Manitoba. Highly recommend it. Incredible. Every month is good stuff. So be sure to come back and check it out. And then of course, be sure to check out Advance, and you can find Advance at www.advancemusic.org. Um, to get into it, I'm going to do a little intro. So our first guest today is Witch Prophet, who is a queer East African singer-songwriter and co-CEO of Heartlike Records. She provides her fans with a soundscape of vocal layers, loops, raps, and harmonies in a bed of hip-hop, jazz, and soul-inspired beats, sort of like Erykah Badu meets Lauryn Hill meets Portishead. She finds depth and connection, creating music as a portal for self-growth and discovery as she navigates and better understands the culture and queer identity. She shared the stages with acts like Lido Pimenta, Shabazz Palaces, The Hallucination, also formerly known as Tribe Called Red, Sean Leon, whole whack of different artists. So well traveled, well versed. Her vocals have appeared on Shad's Flying Colors LP, released in 2013, 2009 Polaris Prize winner, Fucked Up. As well as a ton of other incredible artists. So in March 2020, Witch Prophet released her Ontario Arts Council funded sophomore LP, DNA Activation, a node to her Ethiopian and Eritrean ancestral roots, fusing jazz, hip hop, soul, and R&B with songs sung in English, Amharic, and Tigrinya. I hope I didn't mess that up. Co-produced by herself and her partner Sun, praised by press and music lovers alike. DNA Activation was shortlisted for the 2020 Polaris Music Prize, and she has since released the deluxe edition of DNA Activation, featuring remix tracks with rappers Stas, the Boss, and Latasha. The video for her song Tesfaye, directed by Leah Velmix, was nominated for the 2021 Prison Prize and was an official selection for the 2021 Rhode Island International Film Festival, as well as the 2021 South by Southwest Music Video Awards. So very, very well accomplished. And then interviewing her today will be Melissa Vincent, who is a Toronto-based writer, producer, and strategist. Her work broadly investigates questions of equity, intimacy, and community formation as it relates to music, art, technology, and culture. She's been featured in Pitchfork, Billboard, NPR Music, The Fader, CBC Music, Elle Canada, Vice, Canadian Business, and the Globe and Mail. She's a Prism Prize juror, a SOCAN Songwriter Prize panelist, and a member of the Between the Lines editorial committee. In 2019, she was selected to become the Polaris Prize jury four-person and join the board of directors. In 2022, she was nominated for a Digital Publishing Award in the category of Best Science and Technology Storytelling. So, I mean, we have two incredibly talented people who are going to bless us with their presence. I can't wait for the conversation. So, I mean, I wish you were here with me, but let's welcome Witch Prophet and Melissa Vincent.
Hey.
Y'all had me reading the accomplishment. Impressive. Y'all are impressive.
Yeah, I was like, that's all us. Wow. This is amazing.
All right. I'm going to leave y'all to it. I'm looking forward to this.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. It's so good to see you. It's funny, I guess, I mean, I'm in Montreal right now and you're in Toronto, but then we're also in Manitoba. I find it's funny we had to get there for us to have a chance to speak.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. How was your day today?
It was good. I actually got a lot of the admin work that I was not doing for the past 3 weeks done. So I was like, woo, I feel accomplished.
I feel like that is serious though, when you're managing a lot of different moving pieces at once. The admin monster is like sitting on your shoulder, hanging over your head.
Yeah.
Like what was it about? For sure. Like what was it about today that felt like you could jump into it?
I think it's, with me, it's like, I know that we're starting tour on Saturday, and so I'm not gonna have time at all to get any of this done. So it's like, I have to get it done now. Like, I could have done it a long time ago. I could have done it 3 weeks ago, but there wasn't that urgency. Now, like, I'm like, no, I really got to get this done because there's no time after this weekend. It's just go with the shows. So that's literally what it was. Like, okay, this is the final push that I could do, that I could be like, I'll leave it till tomorrow. It's like, nah, I actually can't because we're going. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like there isn't that buffer of just another day where you can kind of push it off.
Yeah, for sure. Where it's just like, where it's not like, I push it off and don't do anything. It's like, I push it off and I'm focusing on something else because I'm like, well, that's more important than what's like, what I'm supposed to do, until it becomes a thing where it's piling up and it's like, oh, actually, this takes precedence.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, there's a lot of graciousness and just being really thoughtful around like what you have capacity for in different times. Sometimes it's like a creative calling just really needs your full attention. And I think making the decision to honor that, or just other responsibilities in your life, is a part of figuring out how you make a career work for you and work on your own terms.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I think this talk about what it means to work in music, work in art, think of yourself as an entrepreneur, and think about success is something that I just imagine changes as you mature and changes as you deepen your creative process and figure out, or maybe just keep moving the target on where it is you want to go. And I wonder for you, like, what was the first time you felt successful and it felt like you had accomplished something that you were proud of?
I think within music, the first time I felt successful was putting on 88 Days of Fortune, when I used to run a collective called 88 Days of Fortune, and we used to throw events within Toronto, bi-monthly events. And so I think the first time I really felt successful was throwing an event without having any knowledge of, party promotion, concerts, sound, tech, nothing, like absolutely nothing, just having a passion to do something, and doing it and having it packed with people, and having people come back, every 2 months being like, when's the next party, when's the next party. I think that was the first time of like, oh, this can go somewhere. And then from that it was like, okay, let's focus on the music. And then with the music, it was the first time I landed a sync deal, and somebody paid me for my music, and it was like continuous checks where it was like, here it's being played, this commercial, it's being played again, here's a random check showing up in the mail. It's like, wow, the success of like, I don't have to do anything, I just did sang the song one time, and it's like, providing some sort of income. And I think now the way that I think of success is um, just the ability to continue to make music and art and not have to rely on like a second job or something like that. So even though sometimes I'm like, ooh, I should get back into catering, like I'm like, on the edge of like, is this grant gonna come in? Am I gonna get booked for the summer? Am I gonna get shows? Like, always kind of teetering on the edge of like um, of the financial stability, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah. How do you stay sort of like balanced when some of those fears start to creep in and you're wondering about how you manage the potential precarity? I think anybody working in a creative discipline feels aggressively.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because I believe so much in manifestation and the power of words and thoughts and energy, I really try hard not to fall into the negative mind state of like, I'm not gonna make it. I don't have money, or I'm really broke right now. Like it's not, I'm not perfect, and like there are moments where it's like really hard to push through and just be like, there this is my calling. Like, I'm meant to do this. I love doing this. It makes me really happy. And I believe in following your excitement and following your passion. Like, that's what's gonna ignite something more. So um yeah, it's really hard to not fall into those moments, but I find that the moment I'm like so close to falling into that like real doubt, that like depression,
Yeah.
that's when something good happens. It's like right at the edge of like, and I always laugh. I'm like, man, like if there is a God or whatever, or like this is a little sadistic. Like it's like you make the absolute edge of like, oh, I'm not gonna make it, and it's like, here you go, you got a Canada Council grant. It's like, oh my God, I've never gotten
Like right at the edge.
like, yeah, it's like, I hate that game, but it's exciting, but it's also like hella stressful. Uh,
Mhm.
but, but it's exciting because I've never been at the point now in my career where I've had so much money coming in towards my projects, like having granting committees and arts councils really believing in my projects and things like that, and putting funding towards it. So it's a very tight game of like, am I gonna cry because I'm sad, or because I'm so overwhelmed and can't believe at how happy I am. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like just learning how to navigate both of those spaces. I mean, it comes with experience and it comes with just having done it before and
yeah,
you just really like honing in on how these projects come together and you have like a really deep portfolio. I mean, even I remember being in high school and like couldn't come to any of the events but knew what you guys were doing from a distance, and that might have been 10 years ago, right? And I feel like those things just end up materializing into really beautiful things later on. And
yeah,
I mean, I think when you imagine just the music industry, like a lot of people see it as a monolith. I think the Canadian music industry in particular, because of how many different granting bodies are available or how many different institutions have their hands in uh, music-based projects. I mean, what misconception have you seen, and maybe what sort of like secret back door have you also observed in your career?
Well, I think the number one misconception with the Canadian music industry that I've seen is that there's not enough room for everybody when there
Mm,
is more than enough room for every single person who is truly talented and passionate. And sometimes, like one of the things my mom says is like, sometimes the person who practices all the time is better than the person with the natural talent who doesn't do anything at all. Like,
mm,
if you're working hard, you're gonna get somewhere. Like, and there's more than enough room for people who are super talented, and then people who are like just really hard workers who know how to play the game, because it is technically a game. You have to talk to the right people. You have to, schmooze with the right funders. You have to play the right shows. Um, you know, uh, just like anything. Um, but yeah, the number one misconception is that there's not enough room for success when there's more than enough, like way more than enough room. If you think about it, of like the states, like there's like thousands of male rappers just in like the small genre of hip hop rap. Like there's like
mm,
thousands of successful rappers. And then if you think of Canada, you can only think of like a handful. It was like, but why? There
mm,
are thousands as well. There's more than enough space. Like, another misconception is that you need the money in order to succeed. You need the funding and the grants.
mm,
You don't need that. I think uh we're in the age now, like maybe 10 years ago, yeah, maybe 20 years ago, yeah, you need to go to a big studio and stuff like that. You don't need that now. You can do it on your computer, you can do it on your phone. You can do the majority of things yourself and then outsource like mixing and mastering to people who are actual engineers. So yeah, you don't need thousands and thousands of dollars to create something. You don't need a label to have a distribution deal to have your music on Spotify. There's a lot of things that people, you know, don't know because
mm.
it's been a like a gate it's sort of like a gate kept community.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all of those workarounds that are available, and
Mhm.
with how much information and like knowledge is just accessible online,
Mhm.
accessible through like word of mouth in different creative communities. Like you can just get a lot of what you need before you need to sign
Yeah.
your name on anything official. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, what were some of the ways that you learned how to access those resources or just developed like your own um, style of a DIY approach to making things happen?
YouTube was my number one like source of like trying to figure out. Like I've watched a lot of videos on like what is a record label and what is a sync deal and like just random videos of random guys and girls just like making videos in their homes sharing information. Um, a lot of Tumblr posts. Watching a lot of documentaries on different record labels, on different artists, and hearing their own experiences and trying to learn from their mistakes, or at least like recognizing the things that they sort of flagged as something to avoid. Um, yeah, it was all just like, and a lot of learn and make a ton of mistakes as I went. And I still make mistakes because I'm
Mhm.
really I'm still learning. It's like, I didn't go to school for any of this. I have been thinking about it more and more though, about going back and taking some sort of a business course, but at the same time, I work better in sort of courses that are intensives. Like, so when I did the Toronto Arts Council's Cultural Leaders Lab, it was like a year-long intensive on like leadership and working with community and how to organize business and things like that. And that I felt really helped me grow as an artist, but also as an entrepreneur. Um, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just so appreciate you like spelling out just the ingredients that it takes to develop this sense of confidence. So when those moments come in, you kind of know that something good is coming, because I feel like a lot of times people enter spaces and it feels like they need to have the knowledge in place for them to participate.
Yeah.
When, when you think about the way that technology is optimized, that means that the first YouTube video that you'll see, if you type in what is a record label, might be like the best descriptor of what that is,
Yeah.
based on how everybody else in the world understands and relates to information. So,
Yeah.
I mean, those are things people can access for free and easily. And if you have a part-time job, or if you're working full-time and you just want to dip a toe in, you can kind of build your own schedule, build your own syllabus
Yeah.
for how to learn things.
Yeah. I also learned a lot from I used to sit on the board for the Toronto Arts Council, and I was also I was on the music committee, so I read a ton of grants. I've also read the grants from Canada Council and of course Factor, and so that really helped me understand the vocabulary that was needed within these funding bodies, like what they wanted to hear. Because before I was saying the same thing, but I wasn't using the vocabulary. So I was saying all of this stuff, but it wasn't in the format that everybody else is kind of using, and sort of like recognize that that's the template that's needed. I didn't recognize that until I started reading other people's grants and started seeing who is actually getting the funding. And I was like, oh, I see. It's not that my project was wrong or bad or didn't deserve funding. It's just that, grants and everything is like a lottery. You're up against a lot of people, and a lot of and sometimes you're up against people who have professional grant writers on their side, right? So you really have to prove what you're doing is worth it, and so you have to use um, the vocabulary that they're using, which sometimes it becomes like a thing where it's like it's not accessible to everybody. I always say that, like, grants are not really accessible to everybody. There are some community-based ones where you can be like, instead of writing, you can talk about your project, you can come in and show your passion. You're like, you might be better talking about it than you are writing. But those are the sort of things that really helped me understand what was needed and what is actually looked for.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that is so important. That's the sort of like kind of black box of knowledge that I think a lot of people just are not privy to, or have no way of knowing that that is something they should be working towards or aspiring towards or trying to plant into their projects.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think that being on the juries for those granting committees is hard, but it's really not. They're always looking for people to. There's so many grants. It's so much. It's work. It's actual work. It's research.
Yeah.
You're sitting there reading hundreds and hundreds of grants, and some of them are horrible, but you still have to read them. And some of them are fantastic, and they really like spark something in yourself, of just like, wow, if this person can envision this for their project, now I can see where I can go further with my own.
Hmm. Yeah. So much of it is just about like continuing to build that well of knowledge and
Yeah.
having as much information in your toolkit.
Hmm.
I wonder if you can walk me through the construction process for the label, maybe from like the first like seed of the idea into what it's blossomed into now.
I think the first seed of having a label was during the third year anniversary of 88 Days of Fortune. There's actually a article in the Now magazine where we got interviewed, and one of the questions was like, what do you see in the next 5 years for 88 days? And we said the number one thing is the label, like that's where we want to go. It didn't happen within those 5 years, but uh, we ended up deciding to, during I think the eighth year anniversary, we decided to rebrand from 88 Days of Fortune to actually starting to focus on the label. And this is when Sun, my wife, and my business partner, and I moved from Toronto to Caledon, which is about 45 minutes outside of the city. The street we live on is called Heart Lake Road. And so when we got here, I was like, man, like, first of all, it's so hard to figure out a name for a label or a band or anything to like go through lists and Google that and be like, somebody else has it. Or like somebody has all the social media. Like, why do you have this name, but you're not like, you know? So it's really hard to do. But when we, like, as soon as we got here, we were like, okay, this is it. This is where our base is going to be. We should call it Heart Lake Records because we're on Heart Lake Road. And we typed it in and there was nothing. And I was like, this is a sign because there's nothing. Like it was just like Heart Lake, the conservation area, which is in Brampton. Like there's like a nice like man-made lake and you can't swim there or anything, but it's like a nice nature walk or whatever. And that's it. And so I was like, this is it. Like this is what we need to do. And so it was just like an expanded version of 88 Days. So with 88 Days, we were providing platforms for artists from across the city and in the States to perform and to network and to grow their fan base and to sort of just, you know, make mistakes on a small scale. So that way, when bigger opportunities come along, they have that practice, they have that knowledge from the shows that we're doing. And then it expanded for the label to focusing more on supporting LGBTQ plus women and non-binary and gender non-conforming BIPOC artists and allies, creating hip hop, R&B, and soul music through funding and mentorship and project management, distribution, and grant writing. So pretty much anything that I had to learn by myself, I'm like, we should provide a program where we're like, here, this is the information I know, like I can help you do this stuff without it being like, and sign all your masters away and sign all your rights away. It's like, we'll help you. Like I help so many people behind the scenes. A lot of people write me and ask me for information, and I freely give it because there's no need to be like, no, you can't get this or no, you can't know this because you might start your own label. It's like, no, start your own label, do that, like make an LLC, like get incorporated, get that stuff, like know your taxes, get that money, like do it. But that's like, you know, that's so with Heart Lake, it's like we want to provide these things, but also we're still a label. I still want to release people's music. I am like a big fan of finding new artists and scouting people and like really supporting artists, but I'm also a big fan of people knowing how to do it themselves. So.
Yeah, and I think like, you know, in a lot of ways, if you enable somebody with the tools so they can walk into a room and be able to answer those questions confidently if they come up, where if you nurture an artist at a young age, you want them to have the confidence to be in a label meeting and they need to advocate for themselves. You know, those are things that you learn early on, and it's great that you're sharing that.
Yeah.
I really loved what he said around giving artists the opportunity to make mistakes on a small scale, because oftentimes the way you learn things, it's a process of trial by fire.
Yeah.
And it can feel like if the first time you run into a mistake and it's the biggest stage you've played on, can be a lot to rebuild your confidence and rebuild your sense of self after. Maybe, I mean, specifics or not specifics, I wonder if you can talk about that a little bit, like what it is to sort of coach and guide somebody through that process of maybe running into something a little tricky and figuring out how to get to the other end of it.
Yeah, I think like one example would be, and I tend to use this example a lot because it was pretty stressful. But the first time we had a real sponsorship or a real collab show was with North by Northeast in like 2016 or 17 or something like that. And everything was really like, oh, we're doing it. This is like the big time. We got the sponsorship. We have their logo on our flyer. You know, it's not just us putting our money into it. We have this brand behind us. And we paid for like musicians from the States to come out. And when we got to the venue, there was no sound equipment. There was some sort of miscommunication that happened. And so there was no sound equipment there when we got there. And so the person we were dealing with at the venue was like, okay, well, we're gonna have to cancel your show because there's no sound equipment. And it was like, okay, what do we do? Because I've paid for artists to come for the States to perform. We're trying to be this like, you know, concert promoter thing. We have artists of our own who are using this showcase as something to put on their CV to legitimize themselves as playing for a major festival, a major North American festival, and in other people's eyes or whatever. And here we are, where it's now going to have to be canceled, and all these, you know, all these losses happen. Uh,
Hmm.
Luckily, we had one Toronto Arts something, Toronto Arts Foundation uh, uh, pitch contest a few months earlier, where we pitched that we needed to buy sound equipment because we keep doing events in places that are DIY, not actual concert venues. So we need
Hmm.
to buy sound equipment instead of renting it all the time. We won the pitch contest and we ended up buying our own sound equipment. And so the first thing I thought was, I'm getting back in the car and we're getting all of our sound equipment and we're coming back because we're not going to cancel. Like, we have the resources, we're going to do it. And although this is incredibly frustrating and scary, and like, you know,
Hmm.
it's like you've just spent all these months working, and like, you know, the idea of like clout, or like being like, we're, you know, we're somebody, we have this sponsorship or this bigger name saying, yes, you're good enough to have our name on your flyer, you know, all those stresses, and not recognizing that like that doesn't really matter. It's like the worth of who we are. It's like, anyways, that's another conversation. But like, you know, it's like,
We can
so
talk about it.
I ran and got the sound equipment and came back, and we ended up having a great party and event. Um, but really, that's the like the idea of like, you will come across something that will totally mess up everything that you've planned at the absolute last minute. How are you going to handle that? Are you going to flip out? Are you going to scream at people or like the person at the venue and be like, what do you mean there's no sound? This is an event for music. Like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
or are you going to be like, there's absolutely nothing they can do about it? What can I do about it right now? And
Mhm.
that's for anything, really. Dealing with sound people who are rude, dealing with um, people who don't want to pay you on time. It's like, how are you going to react? Because that is the only thing you have control over, like,
Yeah,
for real. And recognizing that the more controlled you are with your reaction, the more likely things will get resolved.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, um, I think so much of that piece is making sure that you're honoring your worth and honoring your value, but just being really strategic about your end goal. And
Mhm.
in those moments of rage and maybe even a bit of heartbreak, you
Yeah,
like have your eye on that's where it is you want to go.
yeah,
And it just makes me think of how important it is to have a team around you.
yeah,
So it's like you kind of need to yell at somebody, maybe not the person running the
yeah,
show, but it's like your friend on the phone.
yeah.
And having a network and having a support team really just can be the difference maker. I mean,
Mhm.
how did you go about building a team around your work? And it sounds like your entire career has been rooted in the spirit of collaboration.
Yeah, with 88 days, it was just a group of friends. We were all friends. We were all hanging out, so that's what we were doing. And I mean, like with all friends groups, it doesn't last forever. Best friends don't last forever. people grow up and move away and decide to do other things, and some people stay focused on the end goal. So myself and Sun stayed really focused on the end goal of music and wanting to create something more than just 88 days. And so it went from like a group of 28 people to a duo of 2 people to now like a group of 6 people. So it's really been like it's ebbs and flows, right? But I think the constant has always been Sun in terms of somebody who's actually my number one rock in terms of like who I can talk to and she was the person actually in the first place who had even had a credit card for us to even rent equipment or like rent venue
Mm.
spaces to do things. Like none of us out of 28 people, none of us had a credit card. Like she was the only one who was like, I have $500 credit, like I can do something. And we're like, yes, like like doing parties off of that. So it's like like you invested from the beginning. I remember. I'm never gonna forget that.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, to like now where it's been like um now I have a manager in terms of like in terms of which profit, like I have a manager who has like 2 assistants who work for him for me. I have my publisher, um Sun, and then a couple other people who are in the wings. But it's nice to know that like um, I have the ability to reach out to different people to be like, hey, can you do this instead of me? Because it takes a lot of stress. It allows me to really focus on the music, which I think was getting lost before, because I was doing the majority of admin by myself.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think, you kind of get to this level where you just, there's a finite number of hours in a day. You
Yeah,
reach critical mass, and at some point, like the music is the piece that's actually
yeah,
um, the engine and fuel for the car to run.
yeah.
So yeah, of course, the team has to grow and
Mhm,
adjust to match the scale of work. I mean,
mhm,
when you are looking at and thinking of working with new people, what sorts of qualities do you look for? Um, Especially when you kind of work independently and you know what you want, your career and what you want, and how, like, the home you want your music to live in. But then also there is institution, there are other companies and businesses that will always need to play a role. So how do
mhm.
you figure out when something is a good fit for you?
It's trial and error. Like I I tend to think of myself as a pretty good judge of character, but sometimes people slip through the cracks.
Mm.
So it's like, ooh, you tricked me. So like, it's really it's really trial and error with working with people. I think also because I've done a lot of things by myself, I have a very high standard of how I want the work to be done. Sometimes
Mm.
that's unfair, sometimes that's unfair to other people because they're not me. Like one of the things I tell people is nobody is gonna love your thing as much as you do. No one. You can
Mm.
find people who can be close, but no one's gonna love it as much or more than you. So I have to remember that and then be like, okay, I can't expect things all the way up here when really, it's like I can't really expect all that. But I can expect some things. So um, I look for people who are truthful. I look for people who are fast on communication. Even though I just talked about not responding to emails for so long, but like that's why I need them. Like, no, I need you to be fast because I'm not. I'll see the email, but I'm like, I'm tired. Like, I need you to be fast. Because when I am in that zone of like go work, I am fast.
Mm,
So I need you to be like, catch my vibe, you know, like, I need you to be good with money, and to know. Okay, this is kind of weird because I do say like I want to work with people who have worked with other black people or black women who recognize um me as a person, or as a black woman, as a queer woman. But that's not always the case with the people who want to necessarily work with me. Like meaning like they've never worked with someone like me before. So
mm,
I don't know. It's hard. Like I look for that, but it doesn't mean I always find it in the people that I'm working with. Does that make
mm.
sense?
A
Uh,
100%. Yeah.
Especially within the Canadian music scene. So it's like, um, which is also why I'm like, I don't mind being that person for somebody else to be like, hey, you know who's worked with who, or at least you're a black. I see myself in you, so like I trust you maybe a little bit more to be honest with me. If you're like, what about this person, are they good to work with, or like, is it worth it for me to pay for this product or service, um, you know I don't know if everybody abides to the black girl code, but I do. So I'm just like, I'm gonna keep it real, don't do that or do it. But like, like I want that code, like I want to feel it,
Mm,
so but also like I want to work with people who, when I it's not my saying, but like work with people or surround yourself with people who say your name in spaces that you're not in with
I
good
love that
intention.
line.
It's like I want that. I want people who have me on their mind. um yeah, to connect me with places, to allow to like who can help me like navigate rooms and situations where I've never been in, with like knowledge and ease, while providing abundant like financial opportunities, being like, unlimited source resources, like here you go, like not just to create, but to sustain, but not just to sustain and but to flourish, like a team like that. And I mean, it sounds like a fairy to be like, I wish a genie, like somebody who's like this, but I know there are people like that. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's such a poetic way of putting it, and um, I think that part of getting to the stage where somebody knows you enough, knows your work enough that they feel confident speaking about it
Mhm.
accurately and enthusiastically and with like its full range of color comes
Yeah.
from building a relationship with depth and
Yeah.
intimacy beforehand.
Yeah.
Which is why I think, for some, when new people are thinking about, well, how do I actually just enter the industry? Like, what
Yeah.
is this first step? I mean, I think it's a question of time sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
like, you kind of just need to be there long enough. Like, it's not an
Yeah.
overnight thing where
Yeah.
you go to one networking party and you shake a couple of hands, and all of a sudden you're in all of these like bright new rooms. Sometimes you just kind of need to figure out how do you build relation
Yeah.
and community with people on your own terms, on their own terms, and it's a really respectful, like mutually nourishing experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always tell people, when they ask like, how do I break into a scene, I say, show up to all the shows. Show up to everybody's show. Somebody puts posts up saying they're doing a show, show up. Be the person in the crowd. Like, people remember that. I remember people's faces, and I remember people's faces who come consistently. I'm like, oh, I've seen them at a couple concerts. I'm more likely to talk to them, um,
Hmm.
even when we were throwing events and stuff, the people who would come more uh, frequently would end up being the people who get booked for the next show. It's like, I see your face. Who are you? What are you doing? Like, what's your vibe? What's your deal? And then you find out they're a musician, and it's like, all right, cool. You want to jump on the next show? Like, I don't know if that's how it is now. Like, I'm sure people are doing, like, I'm sure there's like different styles of collectives around the city that are that are doing things, and around the country that are doing things like that. But it's really about just showing up and supporting. I think that's the number one thing. People love anybody who loves them, right? So if
Yeah.
you're there and you're like, love your music, they're like, I love that guy, I love that girl. It's like, yeah. And then you just end up, being that person where it's like, yo, that's a vibe. You're always around, you're always supporting. I'm gonna do the same for you. So
Yes. Sorry, I was just looking to see if any messages had come in to the chat. But I mean, you said it best. Sometimes it really is just that simple of just
yeah.
having your face out there. And I think, for the last couple of years, that being unavailable
Mhm.
just made it really difficult to figure out how you build some of those connections
Yeah.
and also build connections with like a degree of repetition in it. Like I hope
Yeah.
figure out if that's the right way of putting it, but
Yeah.
there is something almost like a meditation to how you come to know somebody and how you come to know someone's work and even just know your role on a team or your role
Hmm.
as a member of a collective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if there's any advice you think you might give a younger self. And maybe on the other side of that, if there's anything you sort of are dreaming about or hope for an older self. Maybe from that Now magazine article, 5 years from now or 10 years from now,
Yeah.
what do you want things to look like?
Something I would tell my younger self is to invest in my dreams. So put 25% away from everything and anything that I get, and to put it towards my music, whether that be taking a new photo shoot or buying t-shirts and silk screen material to make merch, or like setting up a real website. Like that's what I would tell myself, like, hey, get on that quicker than later. Like, I realized that kind of stuff a little bit later in my career.
Hmm.
The importance of actually like investing in your own career without waiting for grants or other things. Like actually like being like, okay, like how I said, I used to work in catering, so I did a lot of catering gigs, and I would spend that money on being like, okay, I need sound equipment. So I need to buy a loop pedal. So like I'll buy a loop pedal with like a little bit of money that I have. Um, so like doing those kinds of things is really important. Um, I think for my future self, I I mean, although we moved to the country and we live on a farm, I still see myself back in the city. So I'm like, I'm buying a venue. Like that's a definite goal. I've always, me and Sunsun have always had. It's like I want a venue in Kensington Market. Like I want a venue like a venue that they have in Berlin where it's completely soundproof. You can't tell there's a rave happening, so it doesn't matter that there's condos or houses being built around. It doesn't matter. The sound is so good and the building is built for the sound, so it's not going to leak. I think that's yeah, that's the steps. That's the next, like, having a place where we live, but it's also a venue. And
Yeah.
in the market is probably where I see things happening in the next. I want to say 5 years, but I also know like the COVID has been 3 years, and that was a blink. So I was like, nah, maybe I'll be safe with 10. Well, 10 years, it'll be good. So yeah,
Yeah. I mean, time is a social construct,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
If we can dream for a bit, like what else do you think would be in this dream venue? If
Well,
you,
okay. So one of the things that we saw when we were on tour in like 2012, we played a show in Berlin in this venue called Schokoladen, and they had the venue on the top on the main floor, and then in the basement. Even though I wouldn't have it in the basement, I'd probably do it on the top floor or something like that. Like have a duplex or a triplex style building.
Mhm.
Um, so in the basement they had green rooms, but then they also had like apartments where it was
Mm,
like the artists who are performing can just stay there instead of having to rent a hotel or whatever. So it's like you have the apartment separate from the green room, and then you have the venue. So I was like, oh, we could do that, but then we could also have like a coffee shop because I like sandwiches and have done catering. I'm like, oh, I can make sandwiches, no problem. We can make money off of that. Like, what do people like to eat? People like to drink. Like having a space where um, you can do multiple things. One of we've always wanted to also have like an art gallery. So I'm like, man, it would be great if you'd be able to like have an art gallery and also have a music venue. Just a bright space where you can actually do a lot of things, where it's a community space, but it's also respected in terms of like musicians from all levels being like, I want to play there,
mm,
even if it is like, oh, it only fits 200 people, it's like, well, you better get in because that's the best party, like, and that's the best set.
yeah.
That's that's the kind of space I envision. Um, yeah, and of course, always having a backyard because backyard parties are the best.
They are. But I think, when I imagine the outcome of a space like that, it is putting people in a room together where when you have questions or
Mhm.
you need something or
Mhm.
you are looking for somebody to illustrate your poster
Yeah,
or maybe somebody who has a way with words who can look over your grant,
yeah,
those things are happening naturally and organically in the space.
yeah,
And once people are in there, they kind of, they're entering with a set of shared values and ethics. There's no kind of question around
yeah.
like what their motivations are being there. That's kind of clear by their entry point because
Hmm.
the space itself holds an identity and it holds yeah, it just the it's funny. I live close to the Toll Keepers Museum, and for some reason that comes into my mind, but it like, yeah, it like contains all the good stuff we want our creative spaces to hold.
Yeah, yeah. I also see like, I mean, like this is like such a multi like envisioned space. I'm like, there's so many rooms, even though there's who knows, but like. I'm like, there could be a record store and we could sell merch from like Heart Lake Records artists, but also local artists. And then like, yeah, I'm just like, oh, the dream to be like, yeah, we have $8 million and bought a space and like and are able to pay people to actually work there and like pay artists who don't necessarily want to be artists anymore but are really good at sound tech to do the sound tech, like
Mhm.
it's like a way to continue in the music world realm without necessarily being a singer songwriter.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I never really thought about that piece of it, but I think so often when people start off as an artist, they think that if for some reason that no longer serves them, then they've kind of like, they cross themselves out of a career in music in general. When
Yeah,
there's so many ways to find yourself and find your role
yeah,
in the art of music making.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think for anybody that has a creative practice, there's a level of like, you're working really hard and you're working against a deadline or you're on tour, just a lot of elements of it that can be strenuous. And how do you like heal and recover and repair from that, um, once you've realized you've had like a really heavy work period or you've gone through like a really like emotionally tumultuous experience?
Well, I'm a big napper. I like to take naps. I'll be like, I'm going to bed. So like I really like dreaming and I like sleeping and I find that taking a nap really um, restarts what's happening for me. I also smoke a lot of weed. Like I smoke weed anytime anyways, but like it usually that's what I'll do. I'll just smoke some weed and relax and probably watch music videos or things on TV that I don't have to think about, where it's like
Mhm.
just easy, like The other day I watched some really stupid movie. I can't even remember. It was some stupid movie on Netflix, and I was like, man, this movie's so dumb, but I love it because I don't have to think about anything. I'm like, yeah, there she is. She met the guy she liked. Yeah, there he goes. He can't remember if he looked like that. Like, it's like nothing too hard. It's like, like it's like, the stress of the world is intense. So it sometimes those things are nice to just be like, I don't want to think about anything right now. Like I just
Yeah.
want to be entertained. And even though my music it can be really like existential or like whatever. I don't necessarily want to listen to that or go in that direction when I'm feeling overwhelmed or um, overstimulated. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like you just get to pump the brakes for a minute, and even with media or television or movies, where
yeah,
you just know how it's going to end. There
yeah,
is something so satisfying about pressing play and
yeah.
knowing that it will likely have a happy ending.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I
Yeah.
could watch those things and be like, there's no black people in this. It's like,
Yeah.
I know. It's like, I know, but it's okay. Let's just watch it. Not even think. Don't think about it. Let's just watch something dumb, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, all of those things, I mean, I think that's what's so beautiful about developing a healing practice for yourself is that
Mhm.
they're just all incorporated. There's no rules or kind of judgment in that space that you
Yeah.
create, right? Plenty of time for it outside of it, but what
Yeah,
you
for
do to
sure.
feel good and heal yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, it has just been such an incredible pleasure for us to speak. I'm
Yeah,
really
it's
glad
been
we got to
nice.
spend
Long
some time.
overdue.
I'm keeping an eye on the time. I know that if there are any questions, this would be a good time to ask them. I know that Andrew had wanted to pop in
Mhm.
to say a few words. I feel like even after like a really long time of doing Zoom video things, there's always a part of it that feels like completely
Yeah.
unpredictable.
It's like we're playing double dutch. We're just waiting. Like, when do I jump in? Yeah.
I haven't done double dutch in so long. Were you good?
I was never good at double dutch. No, I wished I was. I was the one that jumped in and they're like, nah. I was like, no, I can't do it. The single step, the single skipping rope, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it was the tricks.
Yeah.
I couldn't do a trick. And it also took me like a really long time to just figure out how to jump.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
basic jump
Yeah.
basic jumping and like a lot of patience. I mean, I was thinking about it recently, but like there's so much you learn later in life from
Yeah.
schoolyard games,
Yeah.
like the structure and function and like composition of them that just at any stage in your life, you're like pulling upon those early lessons and you're figuring out how it works for you as an adult.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I also I did a talk a little while ago, and at the end it got cut out. So I'm not sure if that will be the case here. Hi.
Hey,
Hey.
we're like, what's going on? Help! Somebody!
No, I myself was like, yo, how do I come back?
This is the
That's the thing about these things, right? We're all still figuring it out. 2 years
Yeah.
into it, and we're like,
yeah.
I don't know how this works. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. But that honestly, um, on behalf of everybody, I just want to thank you guys. You absolutely um, killed this. This was the conversation I was hoping to hear. I think I needed it myself. Gave me a lot of inspiration. So this was incredible.
Mm,
Yay.
And I hope people benefited from this a ton. You know what I mean? I saw the chat blowing up a little bit. So lots of conversation and that made me mad happy. So. A few last details. Obviously, this BPM Speaker Series aims to connect with and inspire emerging Black music entrepreneurs and musicians and recognize the immeasurable impact of the Black community on music and culture across the globe, especially here in Manitoba. This series obviously was put together to feature influential speakers sharing their career journeys and lived experiences working in the music business, showing different career paths, the ins and outs, and just having an opportunity for Black professionals in the music industry or even adjacent industries to connect and talk about what we talk about. This was incredible. We're going to be doing it again. Keep your ears and eyes peeled for September. We'll be back to do this one more time. You know what, Melissa? You did so well. I'm going to ask you to come back. I'm putting you on the spot. We're bringing you back if you want it.
Wow, I think I just got drafted.
You know, I loved it. I loved it. And Leilani, don't be surprised if I hit you up to come back and do something else too. I'm gonna find ways to pay my people. That's what it is.
Nice.
So again, one more time, I appreciate you guys. You guys were the best. For everybody watching, thank you so much for coming and joining us. We're wrapping it up. That's it. That's all I got to say here. Again, thank you so much to Factor. Thank you to Black History Month Manitoba. I hope I didn't. I got to get that right. I'm not screwing this up. Black History Manitoba.
Nailed it.
Yeah, there you go. And thank you so much for the support from Factor, Advance, Canada's Black Music Collective. Check out the playlist coordinated by or put together by YBK Shakur. Go to manitobamusic.com/BPM and www.advancemusic.org if you want to find out more about Advance, all that good stuff. Can you guys just shout out your Instagrams if you want people to follow you and whatnot, all that? Or you don't need to?
Sure. I am Melissa Juicebox. I am. I do have a Twitter. I'm not on it very often, so if you'd like to say hello, I'm on Instagram. Amazing. Or also my website, also my email is probably your best chance. But
okay, amazing. Yeah. What's the website?
melissavincent.ca.
There you go.
I was very lucky that there wasn't another one first.
Yep. Which seems surprising. That's like I'm not hating on your name or anything. But Melissa Vincent, it seems like a more common name. You just expect there's got to be another Melissa Vincent on the planet, and you
wasn't fast enough.
Yeah,
I got it first.
You got it. Good for you. Good for you. Leilani, do you wanna give us the deets?
Yeah, I'm Witch Prophet on everything. Witch as in, like the Wicked Witch of the West. And profit as in whatever profit you desire, except for the money one. That's not how you spell it.
There you go. Amazing. Yo, this was, again, I appreciate you guys so much. We'll obviously stay connected and keep doing it. Thank you, Manitoba Music, for putting this on. Thank you for all our sponsors and everybody else that helped support this, and everybody watching this. Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to you. Thank you so much for facilitating and creating the space for
us. Thank you.
It was
no, I'm happy to do it. This is the best. Oh, Matt, we just threw all the stuff in the chat there, so you guys can just click buttons and that'll pull it up. So that'll do it. Anyways, that's it for us. We'll get out of your space, and you guys can go eat dinner and whatnot. All right. Peace.